Do you think you need an extraordinary life to be a great storyteller? Think again. Here's something surprising. About 80% of our daily conversations are stories about ordinary things: commutes, work, meals. Yet, the stories we tell still stick with people. Research even shows that when you tell a story, neural coupling happens, meaning your listener's brain syncs with yours. Isn't that wild? Great stories aren't about having a dramatic life, they're about how you share the moments you live every day. That's what we'll dive into. I'll show you how to take small, everyday experiences and turn them into gripping stories. We'll look at techniques to build tension, use pacing, and keep your unique voice. Ready to become a storyteller everyone wants to listen to? Let's get started. Chapter 1. Find magic in the mundane. Turning everyday moments into gold. You don't need big, dramatic events to tell a good story. In fact, some of the most compelling stories come from the smallest, everyday experiences. Author Brené Brown said, "Maybe stories are just data with a soul." Think about that for a moment. It's not the event itself, but the meaning you attach to it that matters. Here's a trick. Start by looking at your daily life and pinpoint moments that may seem ordinary. Did you get caught in the rain? Did your coffee spill during your commute? At first glance, these events seem trivial, but they have the potential to become compelling stories when you add a layer of emotional connection. The secret is in the details. Researchers at Princeton found that when people listen to stories, their brains synchronize with the storyteller's brain. This neural coupling means your audience can literally feel what you felt, even if it's something as simple as missing your train. Use vivid sensory details to bring the mundane to life. Instead of saying, "It was raining," say, "The rain pounded against the window, each drop louder than the last, and I was drenched before I could even step inside." When you paint a clear picture, your audience will be right there with you, even if it's just a quick run to the grocery store. Chapter 2. The Power of Perspective. Telling stories from new angles. A great story often comes down to how you tell it, not what it's about. Changing the perspective can make a world of difference. One of the easiest ways to stand out as a storyteller is by offering a fresh viewpoint. For example, instead of telling a straightforward story about getting stuck in traffic, try imagining how it felt for the dog in the car next to you. Suddenly, the situation becomes unique and memorable. In her book Bird by Bird, Anne Lamott suggests that writers observe with a writer's mind, meaning you should pay attention to the world around you and think about how different characters or objects might see the same event. This kind of storytelling instantly sets you apart because you're giving the audience something they didn't expect. Here's a fun exercise. Take an everyday experience and narrate it from the perspective of something unusual: a child, a dog, or even an inanimate object like your phone. Research from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that shifting perspectives helps people develop empathy. When you show your audience an unexpected angle, you're also engaging their curiosity and emotional depth. Chapter 3. The Rule of One. Crafting stories around a single, compelling detail. When telling a story, less is often more. Instead of bombarding your audience with every possible detail, focus on one key element and build the entire narrative around that. The Rule of One suggests that a single vivid detail can be far more memorable than a flood of information. Cognitive psychology backs this up. Studies show that people can only retain 3 to 5 chunks of information in short-term memory, so overwhelming them with too many details can make your story forgettable. Think about this in terms of visual storytelling. Imagine you're describing a busy street, but instead of describing every car, tree, and building, focus on one detail: the sound of a distant saxophone echoing off the alley walls. That one image will stick in the audience's mind. By zeroing in on a specific, compelling detail, you create a more powerful and lasting impression. This strategy also helps with pacing. When you focus on a single element, you avoid unnecessary tangents and keep your audience engaged. Every great story has a rhythm, and by honing in on just one key part, you maintain that flow. If you're enjoying these tips, don't forget to subscribe. There's more coming on how you can elevate your storytelling game. Chapter 4. Conflict isn't king. Create tension without drama. When people think of storytelling, they often imagine conflict, big arguments, dramatic showdowns, or life-altering crises. But here's a secret: you don't need conflict to create tension in a story. Tension is simply about keeping your audience on the edge of their seat, and there are plenty of subtle ways to do this without drama. Take a look at how suspenseful TV shows work. Sometimes the best tension isn't about what's happening, but what could happen. Alfred Hitchcock once said, "There is no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it." In storytelling, this anticipation creates tension and keeps people hooked, even when nothing truly dramatic is happening. One way to build this tension is by using questions to spark curiosity. When you pose a question that you don't answer right away, your audience stays invested because they need to know what happens next. For instance, imagine telling a story about baking cookies for a party. Instead of saying, "I burnt the cookies, draw it out." Say, "As I pulled them out of the oven, I noticed something was off." That pause makes the listener lean in, wanting to know more. Research shows that our brains are wired to seek closure, which is why open-ended questions and suspenseful pauses work so well. In a 2016 study by the Harvard Business Review, it was found that uncertainty triggers the brain's dopamine system, increasing engagement and focus. Chapter 5, The Rhythm of Storytelling, Using Pauses and Pacing to Hook Audiences. Great storytelling isn't just about what you say, it's also about how you say it. The rhythm and pacing of a story can make or break the impact it has on your audience. Think about a good song. It's not just the lyrics that matter but the beat, the pauses, and the timing. The same goes for storytelling. Studies show that strategic pauses during a story can significantly increase its impact. According to research published in the Journal of Cognitive Neuroscience, when a speaker pauses, it allows the listener's brain to process and connect emotionally with the story. In fact, these breaks can make people more empathetic to the storyteller's emotions. A pause at the right moment creates anticipation. Let's say you're telling a story about running late to an important meeting. Instead of rushing through it, build the suspense with timing. Slow down as you describe the moment you realized you were late. "I glanced at the clock, paused, and my heart dropped." That silence amplifies the tension. Pacing also plays a crucial role. A story with constant high-energy moments can exhaust your audience, while a story that drags too much can bore them. A good rule of thumb is to think of storytelling like waves: build up, slow down, and then hit your peak moment. The alternating rhythm helps maintain interest and keeps your listeners engaged from start to finish. Chapter 6, Borrow, Don't Copy. Learning from other storytellers without losing your voice. No storyteller works in a vacuum. The best storytellers borrow techniques, styles, and structures from others. But the key is to borrow, not copy. You can take inspiration from great stories you've heard or seen, but your voice should still shine through. In Steal Like an Artist, author Austin Kleon emphasizes that nothing is original, and that's okay. Art is theft, he writes, but the trick is making it your own. If you admire the way a comedian tells personal stories, or how a novelist builds suspense, take note. Use those strategies, but infuse them with your own perspective and style. Let's say you love how David Sedaris adds humor to the mundane. You can borrow that approach, but don't mimic his exact voice. Maybe your humor is more dry or sarcastic, lean into that. Borrowing techniques without losing yourself helps you build a unique style, and it's something every great storyteller does. This doesn't just apply to stories, consider how others deliver them. TED Talks, for example, are known for blending storytelling with clear, engaging structure. Studies show that these talks often go viral not just because of their content, but because of their pacing and storytelling techniques. In 2018, a TED Talk analysis found that the most popular talks used personal stories and a conversational tone, even when discussing complex ideas. When you're learning from other storytellers, focus on how they structure their stories or keep their audience engaged. Do they start with a question? Do they leave out key details until the end? Take note of those strategies, and then use them as a foundation to build your own style. By borrowing techniques from others and adding your own voice, you become a storyteller who stands out, rather than one who blends into the background. If you want to keep learning how to become a great storyteller, make sure to subscribe. You don't want to miss the next tips we have coming.